Now we're taking you to a honey shed on the Coromandel Peninsula to meet Shayne and Elizabeth Mackenzie of Woodlands Organic Honey. They run one of only a handful of organic honey ventures in New Zealand and won 2 gold medals and 1 silver this year at the Outstanding Food Producer Awards. Producer Sally Round visited them in the autumn. The harvest was over, but there was still plenty of work to do.
This is where all the honey is kept. We're coming into the packing shed here at Woodlands Organic Honey. Oh, I can already smell the honey.
Oh, yes.
Beautiful. So we're up in our honey packing shed, which is in Colville, which is a wee town north of Coromandel town. Yeah, top of the Coromandel Peninsula, really. The view's nice.
There goes the perfect amount of honey in the pot.
Honey into the jar.
251 grams would be perfect.
And then I will screw on the lid.
Yes, very technical stuff here. At some point I realised I'd put on 500,000 pots of honey by hand, and I was like, that's quite a lot of lids, isn't it? And you think about 500,000, you don't want to do them all at once.
Now, Shayne, you're not normally sitting here on a stool filling pots of honey, are you?
Quite often someone else does that and I put the lids on, yes.
But you're outside dealing with the bees, are you?
We do everything. We've just finished rearing a whole lot of queens for our operation. So that's something we do, just usually starts about the start of February and try to get it finished before the end of March. Ideally earlier the better, but the weather's been real good for us this year. So yeah, timing's everything. Big long sunny days is what you want when those queens come out, and rearing queens is definitely one of the more challenging beekeeping jobs.
Tell us why you need to rear queens.
It just basically, with all of the stresses that come upon the hive through their existence and treatments that we have to use, it is the best thing to requeen the hives. Otherwise, often the queen will fail at a bad time, and then you'll end up with a drone laying hive. Or something like it, and yeah, then the hive's pretty much it's a death sentence for them. The male bees need help to get out of the cells, so at some point you come along to a drone laying hive and there's a whole lot of male bees just stuck in the cells, really, because if they get too weak and there's not enough help to get out, that's what happens. So that's not a good sight. But yet also to make new hives, if you want to make a few new hives, which you have to, because ultimately with any livestock, not everything survives. So if you don't want to go backwards, you have to make some more to stay on the level, or to move ahead slightly if you can. Yeah, we've got a bit to do. It's going to be a long day.
But it's a good day.
No, that's right.
It's a good day.
The hat on a sunny day.
Yeah, beautiful weather. How far afield are your hives?
Well, we travel to the end of the most northern parts of the Coromandel, which is sort of, east coast to west coast, and yeah, we don't really travel that much further than that. We've always just liked to stay local, and it makes it easier for managing your bees if you can keep an eye on the weather, really, wake up day to day and understand what's happening around your bees. It's going to help you manage them, Things change quite quickly.
What sort of land is it that they're on?
We're on a lot of privately owned farmlands, local farmers around here and landowners, and yeah, so some of them are working farms and some of them are just 1,000-acre blocks, and also on local community lands. There's a number of communities that we're on, and in some cases it works for them. We help to pollinate their orchards and we give them some honey, so that's good. We are lucky to have a lot of support from the local people, really.
And what about what they forage on? What's special up here in the northern Coromandel?
Well, the gorse. The gorse is phenomenal. Yeah, we got heaps of it. And they love it. So yeah, you'd rather the bees getting pollen than cutting it. Yeah, they love the pollen. It's hard to look at a gorse bush the same when you don't want to be pricked by it, nor do you want to cut it, but the bees love it. So yeah, it's a funny thing, that, isn't it?
Imagine it's disappearing though, with all the native bush coming away.
Yeah, that's fair to say. It's fair to say that the landscape's changed over the last 25 years since we sort of started doing this, or it's even longer than that. Quite a lot changes. It's it's pretty much 30 years since I first went out with Don Sutherland Harvesting, who was the original owner of the bees around here. And so we did 2 seasons of that. I remember it. He had some quite vicious bees, and I was quite young, and I didn't really go that well getting stung. I swelled up pretty bad. I can tell you that. And so I remember I used to put on this set of overalls, like this orange set, and then I'd put on what is called a half veil, which is like a top half of a bee suit, and then I'd put on a full bee suit over the top of that, and I think a bit of tape as well, and that would stop John's bees getting you. But I'd like to think we've tamed the bees a little bit by breeding some slightly kinder ones that you don't quite need as much. And I think it was pretty hot in all those gears from memory, so yeah.
What made you want to get into the bee business? Because you were working in a mill before.
Yeah, well, funnily enough, that was a part-time summer job when I started with Don. So I did a couple of seasons when I was about 15 and 16 when I was still at school. And then I went into some tech stuff and electronic engineering, electrical engineering, and then I came back and worked at the local timber yard here with a man named Colin Macbeth, who was always an entrepreneurial type, and he'd probably had enough of working for someone else and wanted to do something creative, and he decided to buy the bee business off Don Sutherland. And at the time it was a fairly small operation, just had one truck, some pretty old equipment. Yeah, we used to take the bees pollinating as well. So I remember my first adventures with Don was going on a pollination trip to Katikati with our bees from the Coromandel, which was a interesting experience, and pretty much the last time I did that. and Colin, well, it's a lot of effort travelling that far at night with bees and getting up and looking after them when they're 3 hours away. And then, I think Colin came along and did one trip like that, and he said, "No, we're not doing that anymore. We're going to do something different." And he must have thought, "How can I do something different?" And he decided to go organic. Him and his wife Delcy. They decided, let's buy these bees and we'll go certified organic through BioGrow. So they must have applied and filled out all the necessary paperwork and maps and data, and started running an organic bee operation and created their own label called Woodlands, and off they went. Found some international markets with a bit of help from Binny Brown. It's in Singapore and Malaysia and Canada and places like that. And
do you know how many organic honey producers there are in New Zealand?
I don't know offhand, but it's not a huge amount. It was extremely challenging when the Varroa came. Colin was in business with 2 other people at the time, and I think both of them did give up. A lot of people left when the Varroa came. It was extremely challenging to manage the Varroa with organic treatments.
Yes, because those would be synthetic treatments on the whole, would they? And being organic, that wouldn't be allowed.
Yeah, that's right. So, it was only in an emergency you could use that. If, you'd have like a hospital side, if things went really pear-shaped, you might use 1 or 2 of those. But really it was a big game of trying lots of treatments. I remember we started with formic acid, and we made up these big pads and treated away with that. It was pretty full on. And we used Epilife VAR and Timer VAR and ApiGuard and all sorts of different treatments along the way.
And these are allowed?
Yeah, they're all organic treatments. So oxalic acid was always a common one that was known as well, but I hadn't used that till more recently. That's where we've ended up these days with these paper cardboard strips infused with a mixture of oxalic acid and glycerine. So they seem to be working quite well. That's probably the best treatment we've come across. So that's been a bit of a revolution in the last few years. So things have been evolving, but yeah.
And how does it work in the organic honey business? I mean, how do you maintain an organic status when basically you're in the wild?
It's a fairly long audit. There's a lot of questions. It comes back to some basic things like just using untreated pine wood or macrocarpa and, paraffin wax dipping, and not taking your hives to pollination. That was one of the things you can't do, or really taking your hives anywhere out of the area, like not moving them to other locations.
Locations need to be outside a certain area where there might be sprays?
Yeah, so you have to be a long way from any heavy agriculture or even a large town. So I think that a town of 300, you've got to be less than that to be anywhere near it. So that works all right for our little places. We also have to do a multi-residue test at the end of the year. So I'm not sure if it's every year, it might be second or third year, and then they send it away for a multi-residue test for 250 different residues or something. And we've got nil every time, so that's good. And also just about leaving honey on the hives, that's part of the gig. We have to leave food for the bees, that's a big deal. Yeah, basically leaving lots of honey, treating with organic treatments, and in an area miles from any agricultural spraying, is pretty good. But this is a good remote little area where, the farming's kept pretty quiet, really. It's all pretty slow and pretty cruisy, and a lot of people don't really like spraying too much, really. So that works well for us.
What are the bees doing?
Building down for winter, really. It's autumn, they're starting to, find their last bits of foraging flowers around. So, as those disappear, the bees do tend to start getting a bit more, I guess, frenzied. Rain last night, which washes the nectar out, so they're all just, looking for a food source, really. Flying around until they can, find some nectar to take back to the hive.
Elizabeth, are you from the Coromandel yourself? Tell me a little bit about your story.
So I grew up in the Wairarapa, so a wee place between Paetua and Ikitahuna. I got an agricultural science degree, and after that I'd had enough of being too close to town and just wanted to spend some time on the hills with my dogs. So I applied for a few jobs and I got one at Port Jackson.
That's north of here.
Yes, it's about an hour north still.
So you were a shepherd?
Yep, so I worked there for a couple of years, which was great. It was a beautiful place. Like you say, very remote. But no, so I was there, and then my boss was having his 40th birthday one Labour weekend, and a really big party, and he'd been telling me, there'll be a couple of single blokes there, and Shayne was there and played in his band, and that was sort of that. Hit my head at work, actually, and I had a head injury. So I couldn't really even look after myself up there, so I moved down to Colville with Shayne. And Shayne took care of me, really.
She had no choice not to move in. God's will was strong on that day. Who knows?
So
And so that was your move into the honey business?
pretty well. Shayne needed some help with the computer side of things, the technology side of things. A lot of it's gone that way.
What do you mean?
You've got lots of strong suits, mate, but I'm not sure that paper
Techo
works.
ass, mate. Techo wizzo.
One of them. But from uni I had some of those skills, and it all just sort of...
So what's your role in the business? Mostly the admin side? Or do you get out there as well in your bee suit?
Not so much anymore. I did a little bit, but I was sort of taken over all the marketing, exports, sales, the books, social media. When you're on your own business, you fill all of those roles.
So it has been a turbulent time in the honey industry. How have you managed to survive?
Well, fortunately, when times were good, we didn't just buy a Ferrari, because that wouldn't have worked out. No, so the reality of it is we just sort of made some other investments that were, because things were good for quite a long time, and we did make money, and that was good. And so we bought some land and different things like that, and had a little bit of, backup, because I do know that the business can be up and down enormous amounts. I used to think it could be plus or minus 60%, but after the other year when we got 8% of a crop, I guess that means you can be plus or minus 92%. So that's a lot to manage on a hard year. So we just found ways to raise capital and keep going, really.
What is the outlook?
I think it's starting to look a bit more positive. It's still going to be a slow... the hive numbers have about halved in the last few years, and this year's national crop is just below average, there has not been as much honey produced, so that helps start even out the supply and demand. So I guess we just have to get back to a place where there's more of a level playing field.
Shayne and Elizabeth Mackenzie of Woodland's Organic Honey at their honey shed on the Coromandel Peninsula. Elizabeth says the bees are fairly quiet at the moment, waiting for the spring flowers and temperatures before they get busy preparing for the honey flows. The couple have launched a range of organic rewa and Kānaka honeys alongside their Mānaka varieties. That story produced by Sally Round.